If you've started a small business recently, I'm sure you've noticed it's not just about creating a product. If it's your small business, you are the manager and the production team, the shipping department, the marketing department, you do everything. And I think marketing is the most important part. They say you should spend 80% of your time marketing and 20% of your time creating your products. So, how do you go about marketing? I have found social media to be the best outlet, and to do so, you need great photos and great video. And there are really two main sources to get that done. You can go the cheap and easy way and buy yourself a little clip-on lens for your phone. This is a 20 times macro lens that just clips onto the back of my iPhone, and it gives me a really nice close-up shot of the products that I make. Or you can go the more expensive route and buy yourself a beautiful camera like this. This is my Sony A7 II. It is part of the Alpha line. It's the 7 II, and yes, it does drain battery like crazy, but I purchased it before the A3 came out, so it is what it is. So this video is going to basically be me showing you how to get the best out of your DSLR cameras, and instead of shooting in auto, how to shoot in manual. My name is Vanessa. I am a self-taught metalsmith, and I'm the creator of With Love Jewelry. Prior to having a jewelry business, I had a photography business. I shot weddings, maternity photo shoots, I did band photos, business photos, portraits. So I have a big variety under my belt. And if I say to you that I use a 28 to 200 millimeter lens with an f2.8 to 5.6, and you're like, I have no idea what that means, this video is for you. So let's get into how to set up for product photos. I am going to be focusing on close-ups of very small pieces of jewelry because that is the product that I sell. But this information can be scaled to larger pieces as well. So if you sell things that are larger, you can definitely use the info that I'll be explaining in this video. And if you sell jewelry, then this is perfect for you. Or small pieces of merchandise. First and foremost, my opinion, the most important part of photography is lighting. If you have bad lighting, you will not have good photography. And you can do so much with low light. You just have to understand how to manipulate what you're working with. So as we begin to introduce lighting, we cast shadows. We need to understand that the way that we maneuver our lights can work to our advantage or against us. And so, always play with your lighting because that is the foundation of strong photography. I am going to show you a very simple setup for product photography. My favorite source of lighting is the sun, but let's say you have a shop update coming up and it is just overcast and crummy and you can't get outside, it's raining like crazy, so you have to shoot indoors. This would be a very basic but decent setup for your products. If you're looking to do a very neutral background, what I like to do is to get myself some sort of, it could be a picture frame, it could be anything really with a little bit of height to it. You're gonna get 2 pieces of white paper, larger white paper works better, and you're just gonna kind of offset them a little bit so that you have a really big white backdrop. And then when you place your product, like a ring for example, over here and you start photographing it, you have this entire white space beneath and behind what you're photographing so that you have a very neutral foreground and background. Now to properly light this, I like to use anywhere from 2 to 3 lights. So I have a studio light here and I have a ring light there. What you can do is you can set up your ring light right in front of your product. It will cause a shadow behind, so then I like to come in with an overhead light so that I'm kind of erasing all of the shadows, and now I just have a really well lit product. So let's do that so you can see what that looks like. So I've just created some shadows inside of the ring. So I will come in here now with this other studio light. I will drop it down and angle it to get rid of any harsh shadows. And then it's really about just playing with everything so that you don't have any harsh shadows there. So now that we have our basic light set up for our product, let's talk about how to use the DSLR. When you have a lens, for example, like this one, this is a 28 to 200 millimeter lens, and you're shooting something very small. If you shoot at 28 millimeters, you can get super duper close to what you're photographing and get a nice crisp focus. If you go to 200 millimeters and you really increase the length of your lens, you need to go further away from what you're photographing to be able to get the focus, the product in focus. So the higher the number, the further away from what you're photographing you have to. Does that make sense? The further away you have to be from what you're photographing. I'm going to shoot on 28. So let me show you what that means in real time. So right now you are essentially looking at the photographer's viewpoint. And you can see here we have all of this information that the camera is showing you. Your camera might be set up a little bit differently, but let's understand what all of this means. Our first number here is our shutter speed, and essentially what that means is it is the amount of time that the shutter opens and closes to allow light inside of the camera. Imagine like a window and you have blinds and the blinds are closed, and when you click to take the photo, the blinds open to let light in and then close again. And the speed at which those blinds open and close is your shutter speed. And so the longer the shutter speed, meaning if this was 1 second instead of 1/320th of a second, the shutter will be open for a full second instead of just a quick 1/320th of a second. The longer that we make that shutter speed, you can see the more light we allow into our photo. So obviously we don't want to shoot something like this. So based on your lighting conditions, you will need to play with how much light you want to let in. I will just show you, for example, if I go to 1/15th, we'll even go to lower than that. If I go to 1/3 of a second, and let's drop this down so you can actually see, I am going to shoot at 1/3 of a second. Did you hear how long it took from when the screen went dark? So we're going to do that one more time. I want you to pay attention to how long it takes from when the screen goes dark to when you hear the shutter click. So that is, what were we at? 1/3 of a second. So that photo is going to be super blurry and gross and not come out nice and clean because, again, we're holding our camera and we are not the steadiest of people in the world. So we're just going to go ahead and delete that. What I like to do with the shutter speed, depending on my subject, is keep it around anywhere from 1/160th of a second and move up to 1/320th of a second. This is more for if you're shooting live action. And since this is just product photography, we don't need to worry about being too high up there in speed. Let's play around with our other numbers so that we can get a good shot. The next number that we're going to come to here is our f-stop. The smaller the number, the more blur you have. The larger the number, the more clarity you have. When you're doing product photography, if you want to make it really artistic and beautiful, you can have only a specific part of your picture or product in focus and the rest can be blurry. So right now you're looking down the lens and what you're going to see, there's that little circle all the way in the middle that opens and closes. So if you have, a very, very small opening for your blinds and all you can do is open this much, you're not going to let a lot of light in. But if you have like a huge opening and you open the blinds and then close them again, a lot more light is going to come in. When that little opening is opened all the way, it allows for more light to pass through the lens. And that happens when we're at our smallest number. As we start to close it up and we make more of our picture in focus, it allows less and less light into the camera. Let's take a look at what that looks like. Let's take a picture with our f-stop as low as it can be. Our focus was on that one peridot on the left over there. And we can see that the peridots are in focus. Everything on this plane is in focus. And then the rest of the ring is blurry. The further back it goes, it gets blurry. And then if there was anything in the foreground here, it would be blurry as well. So this is us shooting on that 2.8 f-stop. Let's see what happens when we increase the f-stop to 8. We're focusing on that same peridot. Our peridots are still in focus, and now quite a bit more of the ring band is in focus as well, with the back of the ring band just blurry. Let's increase our f-stop to 12. So we'll take a picture at 13. Now, this is a huge difference. Both peridots are in focus and pretty much the entire band is in focus as well. As you can see, this is way more clear of an image than our previous image was. And now we're going to go all the way up to our highest ISO, which is 16. You can still see we have clarity in both peridots and the entire ring band. So if you're trying to get a very simple product photo, this is a great way to do that. Now we're going to talk about ISO. When we talk about ISO, we're talking about the sensitivity of the camera to light. I have the ISO on auto right now, and I'm just going to show you as I go from our lowest ISO all the way up to our highest ISO, what happens. So this is our lowest, and you can see the camera darkened pretty dramatically. And as we go up, that is our highest ISO, and you can no longer see the product. So at the moment, we have 1/320th of a second shutter speed, 2.8 f-stop, and an ISO of 50. And I just want to take a photo, just like we've been doing, focusing on that same peridot so that you can see the difference. Now is I'm just going to find a shutter speed that allows these settings to have a balanced exposure. And this right here, this ±0, is our exposure. So this is essentially telling the camera that this has a sufficient exposure and the photo to be well lit. So this is our regulated exposure from our ISO. So I hope this helps you understand working with a digital camera a little bit better. Working in manual mode really allows you to create beautiful photos by manipulating light. And so it's really just playing with that shutter speed, that f-stop, and that ISO to balance them how you want your photo to look. So if you're looking for a darker, moodier photo, you can avoid looking at that exposure altogether and just play with how each option allows you to change the photo. Maybe you want one particular part of that photo in focus, so you have a really low f-stop, and you want it really dark and moody, so you have a lower ISO, and you have a middle ground shutter speed that allows you to get a stable picture that isn't shaky. Or maybe you want to play with movement, and so you have a lower shutter speed that has a longer exposure time, and you allow for movement throughout the photo, and the rest of your f-stop and ISO are balanced. So it really just depends on what you want to do with your photography. In terms of product photography, we're looking for a well exposed, and exposure just means light and dark balance. So we have enough light coming through that we have optimal vision of the photo. So you really can play around with how you want your photos to look for product photography. I am outside and I just want to show you the difference between shooting on your phone and shooting with a DSLR camera. Remember, these cameras are made for photography, so you'll see the difference. I'm going to put my 20 times magnification on my iPhone and show you the difference. And now I'll show you the difference using my camera. So play around. Hopefully this helped you to understand your camera better and to be able to shoot in manual mode better. Again, this was just a very simple breakdown of how to shoot in manual. I hope you enjoyed this video and I will see you guys next time.